First, we're going to have a look at a mock question. So let's have a look at some of the specifics of this situation. This vessel's itinerary includes locations in the Mediterranean and Caribbean. They need to provide their guests with fast and reliable internet, and they need a seamless transition between different cellular providers. Their current deployment involves 2 BR1 LTEs, a balanced 580, and 7 AP1 minis. So let's brainstorm the pros and cons of these points. So the dual BR1s, they allow for multiple active modems. The balanced 580 is managing the whole network. So it's doing the DHCP on the LAN, it's managing outbound policies, firewall rules, things like that. It's also acting as the AP controller. So that's all good. So what are some of the disadvantages? So each BR1 is limited to 100 megabits throughput on the Ethernet ports. And if it's the older BR1s, it's going to be limited even more than that on the cellular modems. In this setup, they were not using Speed Fusion. This meant they were not getting the best results as the internet regularly dropped out. And this was one of the main gripes of the owner. So we're seeing an average data usage increase of 50 to 100% year on year. Ultimately, the client wants internet like they get at home. So some lucky people get like a gigabit per second at home, but ultimately that's not possible on yachts. So anything near that cannot be achieved using a traditional single cellular setup. So does the perfect solution exist? On the cellular side, no. You'll never have the best setup for all locations, but you can find the middle ground when prioritizing for long-range connectivity and reliability. For the local network on board yachts, the Peplink ecosystem is an amazing solution. We're able to monitor the vessel's connectivity the whole way from the data center all the way to the end user's device. Being able to see this all in one place makes troubleshooting much easier and quicker. So in this example, we've got the data center with a SDX in there and Speed Fusion set up. So all the internet access is routed through that. And then on board, we've got a MBX, antennas. We've got 2 MBXs. One is set up as HA, so high availability. Then we've also got an SD switch, 16 port there, and a BR1 power. So the BR1 power can manage the power inputs for other devices as well. We've also got a AP1 mini access point there as well. So obviously you have multiple access points on most vessels. So let's have a look at how you can formulate your answer. We'll recap on some of the content from the previous sessions. In the first webinar, we evaluated the equipment in a generalized manner for the maritime industry. Now we're going to do the same, but for this particular situation. In the second session, we covered installing the equipment on board. We looked at things such as antenna location, cables, router location, lightning protection and grounding. In the questions, if it does not state a specific detail, you can make an assumption, but you need to explain your thought process and reasoning. So to evaluate the current deployment, you want to make sure there are no splitters. Coaxial cable runs are nice and short. High quality cables have been used, and there are as few RF connectors as possible. For the antennas, you want to make sure that the placement is optimal. 360-degree uninterrupted view of the horizon is the best, but that's not always achievable. You also want to make sure that the appropriate antenna has been chosen. Grounding also needs to be confirmed. In the third webinar, we covered optimizing the equipment. We looked at Speed Fusion, Fusion Hub, Fusion Sim, and briefly touched on the SD-WAN controller and in Control 2. So which endpoint did the user end up using for Speed Fusion, and why did they do it this way? Was it Fusion Hub, a physical device like a Peplink router? Well, it has to be a Peplink router. Or even did they use Speed Fusion Cloud? If they used Speed Fusion, which features in Speed Fusion did they utilize? Explain the advantages of the features used, or the reason why features were not used. So which firmware version was used? Are they updated to the latest? Peplink doesn't have a firmware schedule, but we do release new firmwares about every 3 months, and they're always packed with nice new features. We've got a beta out at the moment, so go and check that out. Another thing to consider is the outbound policies. Which ones were used and why? Are there any limitations of the way they are used? Is In-Control 2 being used? What features from In-Control 2 are used and why? Did they solve any particular issue that the client had? Then you want to repeat this for your next deployment. So for the exam, there will be one long question, but you should be carrying out an evaluation like this for every install and every vessel, as every vessel is going to be different.